All right, on Saturday, U.S. Fighter jet shot down a suspected Chinese spy balloon Saturday, but not before affording it ample time to potentially collect and transmit sensitive data about U.S. military installations. The decision by the Biden administration to wait until after the aircraft had breached U.S. airspace and traversed a significant portion of the country over several days baffled many on both sides of the political aisle and raised questions about President Biden's resolve. What will this mean for U.S.-China tensions? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is U.S. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Armed Services Committee and the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs. Senator Hawley, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, what do we know about this whole situation with the Chinese floating a balloon across the United States over sensitive military installations?
Well, what we know is that they don't appear to have much respect for the United States or for the Biden administration in particular. This was a very provocative act, Tony. You know, the Beijing government is a lot of things, but stupid is not one of them. You cannot tell me that they did not fully anticipate that we would discover this balloon and went right across the continental U.S., including my home state of Missouri. I mean, right across my state, right across military installations in my state. And yet the Biden administration took no action until that balloon had gathered all the data it was going to gather. So I think what we've seen is a real display of weakness on the part of the Biden administration, a real display of unpreparedness. And frankly, I fear for the consequences of that.
So, Senator Hawley, you serve on the House Armed Services Committee. I have 2 questions for you. First, the Pentagon putting out a statement last Thursday. In that statement, a very short statement, 1 paragraph, they said that this does not present a military or physical threat to people on the ground. Instances of this kind of balloon activity have been observed previously over the past several years. How come we're just now finding out about this?
Yeah, and this appears to be an attempt to throw some chaff into the wind, Tony, and distract. I mean, because what we've subsequently seen in reporting, and by the way, they haven't briefed members of Congress on this at all. I mean, the Pentagon is all we know is what we are learning from news reports. The Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, the Democrat, has set a briefing for members of the Senate for a week from now. So they are not eager to explain themselves one little bit. And why would you be in the face of this debacle? But it looks like, Tony, what they've said is they believe that China has perhaps done this in the past. But apparently, if China did, it was not reported to the Trump administration. It was not reported to members of Congress. So I can't figure out what the truth is here. I don't know if we didn't realize it in the past or if some members of the intelligence community believe there was spying, but they just didn't report it up the chain of command. Either way, it is extremely disturbing. We need to get to the bottom of it. And Joe Biden needs to level with the American people. Where has he been for days? He's made one brief statement to reporters. He needs to level with the American people about what's going on here.
And Senator, I want to be very, very clear here. You're on the House or the Senate Armed Services Committee. This is a military issue, I would think. It's also an intelligence issue. But and I'm not asking you to breach any confidential information that would, that would cross your security clearance. But are you saying that the Armed Services Committee has not been briefed by the military on these previous incidents that they say, oh, yeah, this has happened before, but they've never told Congress about it?
Yeah, I'm saying, Antonio, I'm on the Homeland Security Committee, but not the Armed Services Committee now. But it's the same point because we would be briefed on the same intel, and I've called for a full hearing before the Homeland Security Committee on the threat from this balloon and from any and every other attempt by the Chinese government to spy. But the answer to your question is, I have not received any briefing on these events, and members of Congress, members of the Senate are being offered a briefing in over a week. But until then, we're just told to, just stand by, read the comments that are coming out, listen to what the Pentagon is willing to say, maybe off the record or on background. But a full-dress classified briefing, to my knowledge, has not been offered until the one that Senator Schumer has set for February the 15th.
That's amazing to me that the Pentagon is saying, oh, yeah, the Chinese have floated balloons over the last several years. This has happened. But we're just now talking about it. I would think they would have a duty to report that to Congress, even if it is classified. I understand that. but still, there should be information going to Congress. Now, I want to ask you one other question based upon this statement. They said once the balloon was detected, the U.S. government acted immediately to protect against the collection of sensitive information. How so?
Well, who knows? I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing that the president should disclose to the American people. I have no idea, and we're just supposed to take it on faith. Frankly, I don't know that I really believe it. I mean, the problem with this administration is you can't really believe anything that they say on any topic. And the truth is, if they were tracking the balloon, and we know that they were, Tony, by the way, here's the other thing that really alarms me. We now know the administration knew of this spy balloon before it was disclosed to the public, and they did not intend to say anything. It was only because a local newspaper reported and published a picture that the administration decided, we're actually going to have to say something about this. They wanted to keep this in the dark. They wanted to keep the American people in the dark. Boy, that is wrong. And so, frankly, I don't trust anything the president says on it. He needs to level with the American people. He needs to answer questions, and they need to tell us what in the world has happened here and how they allowed it to happen.
Senator, I want to go to the Chinese response after their spy ship was shot down. China strongly disapproves of and protests against the U.S. attack on a civilian unmanned airship by force. This was the Chinese Foreign Ministry. They delivered that message on Sunday morning. I mean, it's like somebody breaking into your house and you hit them upside the head with the first thing you can grab, and they file a lawsuit against you. They complain that the fact that you attacked them because they came into your house.
That's exactly right. And, you know, the Beijing government, I guess you have to give them kudos for their consistency in terms of their lies and obfuscation. I mean, it's the most outrageous nonsense that emanates from there. But listen, I mean, these are the same people who said they had nothing to do with COVID. They're the ones who unleashed COVID on the world, and I think almost certainly fiddled around with it in a lab, which is how it reached the lethality that it did. So they are a bad actor. They should be an international pariah. Tony, we should be taking this opportunity to galvanize our allies and partners around the world to say that we have got to isolate this government in Beijing. We have got to send their economy back to the 1970s. We have got to protect American interests, American security. That includes our jobs. That includes our trade. This ought to be a wake-up call, but I don't hear Joe Biden saying any of that. Right. I hear him just brushing off reporters and refusing to answer questions, which begs the question, what are they doing in the White House?
Senator, very quickly, 30 seconds left. Tomorrow night, the president gives his State of the Union address. You know, over 70% of Americans say the country's on the wrong track. How does he do a victory lap and tell everybody everything's okay?
Well, there's no victories to be had here. I mean, his administration has left this nation poorer, weaker, less secure, dependent on China, who he seems intent on appeasing. He has a lot to answer for, Tony. And frankly, I don't see how he does it.
All right. Senator Josh Hawley, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.